Hello, everyone, and welcome to, I believe, day 6 of our COP28 coverage between the Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida and Democrats abroad. We're so welcome that, we're really feeling very great about having each and every one of you on board this journey with us as we're bringing to you live footage of what's going on the ground at COP28, the major headlines, and some discussion about what's actually going on at COP28. So without further ado, as always, if you have questions, please throw them inside the chat box. We're more than happy to address them throughout our presentation, throughout our dialogue and discussion. And in the meantime, we'll go ahead and get started with some headlines. It doesn't, in fact, seem that the drama continues to play out at COP28. Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez and, as you may have remembered, our COP28 president, Abu Jaber, who is also the president of Dubai, or president of the UAE, consistently go at it every single day, back and forth between them about the phasing out of fossil fuels versus the timeline of phasing out fossil fuels versus who said what versus taking out of context. The drama never ends, it seems, between the two of them. But also some interesting drama between John Kerry and the CEO and president of Chevron, with John Kerry calling out the Chevron CEO of not meeting the numbers that Chevron had suggested they were trying to meet a few years ago. So definitely some drama there. There's also quite a bit of detraction from the numbers of the fossil fuel delegates attending this event. After doing a little bit of analysis, I have figured out that the amount of fossil fuel delegates attending this COP28 are about 4 times the amount of delegates from the oil and gas and coal industry who attended COP27. 4 times the number of previous delegates. And again, maintaining the largest delegation at this event. So it's actually kind of crazy. I'm actually really surprised that more news outlets aren't really talking about that factor, considering it's kind of an easy number to look at when you find online. You go onto some of the major delegations attending this event, and you just see so many of these fossil fuel delegates, coal, oil, and gas attending, and very few news media organizations talking about the sheer number of these folks who are attending these events or who are attending the COP28 event. As also a really few interesting headlines came across my desk this morning. Fox News is definitely going at it, trying to detract away from COP28 by suggesting that it's kind of already a failure. All these jet attendees are going to the event, conveniently skipping over the fact that for years Fox News delegates and people at Fox News have denied that climate change even existed, and or if it did exist, it wasn't to an extent or degree that we should actually care. And now they seem to be going at all of our Democratic attendees to the event, suggesting that they shouldn't be taking all these private jets to the event. So it seems like Fox News has really pivoted very strongly over the last few years. But we would like to go into possibly some discussions about who some of our members have interacted with over the last few days. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce. I hear that one of our members got a very nice conversation with John Kerry and also Al Gore. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Dana because I am very curious about what they had to say at COP28.
Well, good evening. Nice to see you, gentlemen. And not I am broadcasting tonight. Just got back to uh, our accommodation, but have had a very productive day at the Bloomberg offsite, where yes, we were very fortunate to have heard from both John Kerry this morning and Vice President Al Gore this afternoon. And I was also fortunate enough to have had some private discussions with both of them. Senator Kerry was very upbeat this morning in talking about the accomplishments of the Biden administration, and pointing out the extraordinary accomplishments. But in private conversations, we started to talk about the fossil fuel industry and fossil fuel subsidies, and which he's working very hard to try to put an end to. He said as soon as tomorrow morning, if he has a say in it. So that was the gist. He's also a good friend of Democrats abroad. He knows us well. His chief of staff knew us. She was very happy to make the connection there for me. And I was absolutely thrilled to have had the opportunity to spend some time with him. President Al Gore, Vice President Al Gore, best president we almost never had, did not hold any punches in his address to the audience today. But perhaps we can get into that a little later while we hear about some of the themes that were covered at COP today. I think John has been on the ground, and the issues today were looking at climate finance and Indigenous people as well. So I'm really anxious to hear as well what kind of experiences Mike had and John has had on the ground at the COP venue today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dana. So without further ado, John, what kind of interesting places have you been and notes you've taken from your sessions?
Well, today I was doing my best to recover from the wonderful reception that Dana's organization hosted last night at a very swank restaurant in a prime location. Very enjoyable, lots of interesting people, great food. Enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you, Dana, and the rest of your Democrats Abroad folks who hosted that event. It was wonderful. But it did take a toll on me today, so I was a little bit dragging. But I did manage to get myself to the venue and took a little time and navigated my way over to the green zone because last night, attending the reception very briefly was a young man originally from Haiti who just finished his electrical engineering degree in Montreal, Canada. And I wanted to do an interview with him. So we recorded that, and we'll have that for you tomorrow. So I then wandered back over into the blue zone and basically just stopped off at various locations to have chats with people who looked some of them looked a little forlorn, like nobody's talking to us. So I went over there and had some excellent conversations. It's nearly impossible to stop anywhere and not have a great conversation with the thousands of people at these hundreds of pavilions. They're doing tremendous work, representing their organizations and institutions very well. One of them was Cornell University has a booth, and I went in to that small kiosk and spoke with two people. One was a law professor, and there was a law student along with her, the law professor. And then there was also a civil engineer, and had a very good conversation with him. He is doing research on mangroves, which are very important to coastal Florida. They provide a tremendous amount of resiliency to our coastal areas by dissipating the energy of storm surges as these hurricanes come upon our coastline. The mangroves are evolved to handle this sort of pressure and stress. They have an extensive spidery root system that extends into the sedimentary soils along our coastlines, our shallow coastlines. And he's actually doing physical modeling. In other words, he constructs a flowway, a big trough, and then puts obstacles in the trough to mimic the effects of these mangrove tree structures. And this is a discipline called similitude. And it's a fairly sophisticated methodology. You know, you think about building models, just miniaturizing, but miniaturizing isn't quite the same thing as representing the real facts, unless in the process of miniaturizing, you also adjust some of the key factors, like the viscosity of the fluid. You might not use actual water. You might introduce something into the water to make it more viscous, such that at the small scale, you get the same effects as you would at the large scale. And the same thing holds true for trying to replace a physical tree with a certain friction on its surface with an artificial object. You have to adjust that friction factor. So he's involved in a very sophisticated line of research designed to assess the benefits, the resiliency benefits in mangrove forests along the Florida coastline. So very interesting to see him there, and more interesting, he's never been to Florida. Instead, he's up there, working at Cornell on issues very important to our state. And then I also stopped by a Sudanese kiosk, and there was another engineer there. He was a coastal engineer doing somewhat similar work. He's a newly minted PhD and is a faculty member at a Sudanese university doing important sea level rise research and looking at the impacts upon the Sudanese coastline. And then next door to them was a Russian foundation based upon the historical contributions of a prominent scientist in Russia who developed a lot of the ecological sciences that are used internationally. But the foundation has evolved to sort of represent and try to put together ecological education in the Russian Federation and before that in the Soviet Union. But today he was talking about, as I was, the need for nations to put aside conflict, get over what should be incidental rivalries that are taking huge human tolls, and get over those impediments and focus instead our creative energies and our productive energies on the climate crisis rather than other endeavors, destructive endeavors. But as I was saying, the Russian scientists have made tremendous contributions in the area of permafrost. Much of the permafrost research, the thawing of the permanently frozen soils. When these thaw, they release organic materials, methane, and they expose the organic matter to oxygen and liquid water, which allows them to decompose, generating both CO2 and methane. So that's a very important potential tipping factor in the climate as these permafrosts melt and emit greater amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So his foundation was involved in those sort of lines of work. Very, very interesting conversation.
And this is incredibly important to talk about the permafrost, mostly because the timeline is accelerating far faster than we had originally considered 5-6 years ago, or even at the Paris Climate Accords, where it was a major focal point of discussion. But it seems like the timeline is, as we continuously do studies in Siberia, in places where the tundra as an active layer of permafrost, how much faster it does seem to want to thaw out and continuously or begin encouraging that cyclical cycle of more permafrost being unfrozen, the microbes releasing their carbon into the atmosphere, heating the atmosphere further, and for unthawing even more permafrost. It does seem like 2037, I believe, was one of the major tipping points for the permafrost. Although that number probably even of itself is kind of conservative when you look at some of the other data out there. But anyway, thank you, John, for that segment. Next, I was going to ask Dana, why don't you tell us a little bit about the guest that we're about to hear from in just a few moments, the pre-recorded interview that you have done.
Yes.
Who is this fellow, and what?
So this is from last night, and this is Robert E. Jones. He is an American residing currently in the Netherlands, working for Mosa Meats, which is the first patented cell-cultured meat. When I first heard about it, I said, "You mean lab-grown meat?" And I was told no. We call it cell-cultured meat. And so there were a few folks coming in to our gathering last night that were engaged in really innovative new endeavors. So I thought it would be nice he came in late, he was working late. So I thought it would be nice to do a pre-recorded message with him later in the evening. So thanks for sharing that with us tonight. And when we're through, I'll get back to you on a little bit more of what John Kerry and Al Gore shared with me and with us in more detail about the theme of investment, methane, the fossil fuel industry.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share the video now. Let's go ahead and watch.
So we're here this evening with Democrats Abroad, Environment and Climate Crisis Council, and Democrats Abroad, UAE, welcoming Americans coming in from all over the world to attend COP28, and welcoming those Americans that are living in the UAE to discuss climate, convene on climate. Let's talk about how we are going to vote in 2024 to make sure that we continue with our climate agenda, that Biden can finish the job, and that we are able to make progress in facing this existential crisis that the planet is facing. We are going to have to address it from every angle. And one of our guests today is going to discuss how food systems are one of the essential keys to how we are going to feed the planet, because feeding the planet means saving the people. It's not just the environment that we're saving the health of all the humans that live on the planet. So I'd like to introduce Robert Jones from Democrats Abroad, Netherlands, and he is working in cell-cultured meat, which is a very new technological innovation, and he's going to share with us some of the innovations and the importance of this new industry. Robert?
Yeah, thank you. Well, excited to be here at COP28 in Dubai. And the reason that I'm here is because I work in the food and agriculture space, especially in innovation. And the role that food has played in the climate crisis is not talked about enough. We know now that agriculture alone accounts for more than a third of greenhouse-causing gases. And it's not been part of the conversation until most recently. In fact, there was 26 COPs before there was ever any discussion of food and agriculture. So we're excited that it's actually finally on the menu. And we're here having a conversation about the technology that we've invented to grow meat from stem cells. We're focused on beef for climate reasons, but there's over 150 companies around the world working on this technology. And if you use renewable energy, you can produce meat at about a 98% lower carbon footprint, use 99% less land and 78% less water. It's not a replacement for conventional meat production, but it'll be a supplement and a complement to it, especially as we have a growing planet, as you mentioned. Not only are we going to have 10 billion people on the planet by 2050, meat consumption, according to the FAO, is expected to rise by as much as 70% in the next 30 years. Most of that's driven by a rising middle class in Asia that's eating more meat. That is well beyond planetary boundaries, so we have to figure out a way, how do we make more protein and layer it into our existing food production system to feed all of those hungry meat eaters. So we're here having a conversation with leaders at COP and stakeholders about our technology and how it should be part of the solution and being considered in these negotiations.
Can you tell us a little bit about why the production of beef particularly and the cattle industry, how it affects the climate and rising greenhouse gases, why it's important to try and limit that?
Yeah, I mean, there's one word, it's methane. Methane in the first 20 years in the atmosphere is 84 times more potent than CO2. It is the fast track towards meeting the 1.5 degrees goal of the Paris Climate Accord. And ruminants, of which cattle and sheep and lamb are, they're called a ruminant because they have a 4-chamber stomach. That unique anatomy in the animal, as they're breaking down food and grass into nutrients, produces a tremendous amount of methane. And so we have to figure out a way we address cattle production's role in the food crisis and the climate crisis. And so that's why we're focused on offering a new way to make beef at a lower methane and CO2 impact.
How far along are you in this process? Have you launched Mosa Meats? Are you delving into the production of other types of animal proteins? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there is not Mosa beef sold yet, but it's coming soon. We're waiting on regulatory approvals around the world. The first one will come in Asia, and we'll go to market next year in Asia with Mosa beef. And so we're looking at regulatory approvals in the United States as well in the next 2 years, and Europe in the next 3 years. So there are other companies that have approvals in Asia and the US, but it's chicken, which is great. It's a new way to make chicken, but the climate impact of chicken is not as important as replacing beef.
I couldn't agree more. This has been a fascinating discussion. I'm really thrilled that you joined us this evening and that you could provide some background for our audience on these new innovations, because we really do need to tackle this problem from every direction, and that includes solving our food systems challenges. Thank you so much, Robert.
You're welcome.
I think it was an absolutely wonderful interview, and it had quite a bit of the content that we've already even gone over in the past. And speaking of, actually, John, what do you have to say on that interview?
Well, I found that fascinating conversation, and I had a chance to talk with Robert at length last night. Enjoyed it thoroughly, incredibly informative. It's not just relevant to climate. It's also relevant to water quality, which is my background. Beef production, Florida has terrible water quality problems. Algae blooms stemming from agricultural and urban waste moving into our streams and our lakes, creating excess nitrogen and phosphorus, which fuels the algae blooms, which completely degrades the system, coating the surfaces of our sea grasses along our estuaries and clouding the water, making sea grasses not extremely viable any longer in these coastal waterways. So beef production places pressures not only on the climate, but on water quality. And you, Rock, working on regenerative agriculture, know that when you capture carbon in the soils, you're capturing the nitrogen and phosphorus as well. So when you're reducing cattle production, you're reducing nitrogen and phosphorus as well, because you no longer have to fertilize these pastures as extensively to get the meat production or the calf production, in the case of Florida, that they seek to achieve their profit margins. And interestingly, on the political front, the first coverage I saw arriving here at COP from Fox News was basically stating that COP28 was a war on beef, on cattle, and as we know from the commercials in Florida, real men eat beef. So they were basically highlighting Robert in their challenges. But Americans are highly sensitive to new products of this sort, and that's why it's interesting that to gain market share and gain entry into the market, and to perhaps reduce or eliminate the growth of the cattle industry globally, they're introducing their products in Asia, where they're be more readily accepted into the consumer's hands. So I found that conversation with Robert to just be wonderfully on target, and I'm glad he was attending the reception last night. We had a chance to meet and talk with him.
I agree. And even in my studies, I note that a lot of the estimates for beef production rarely take into account some of the larger carbon aspects through a process that essentially is called systems analysis, where we look at every point of beef, right? So not just the actual cows and the methane production itself, but the use, of where the food comes from, where the food to feed the cows comes from. That's additional from the grasses and some of the other aspects on the entire farm, not just those directly related to the cow itself. So,
and beef, beef is incredibly energy intensive, water intensive, as Robert was explaining. There's a hierarchy. If you're trying to get calories or even protein, your best bet is things like soybeans, right? It's a plant. The sun provides the energy. Depending upon where it's grown, the water can come from natural rainfall. But then as you take these soybeans or corn and you feed it to animals to produce meat protein, that comes at a much greater cost. So in effect, whereas soybeans might be a factor, right? The soybeans may be a factor of 1 in the energy requirement to deliver that protein to a human. Beef may be a factor of 10 or 20 times that. Whereas chickens are more efficient in the conversion. They may be a factor of 5 more than, say, soybeans or corn. So it's important to look at these numbers and make our decisions on how we as individuals achieve our nutritional requirements and make good choices between plant protein, plant calories, and animal-derived calories and protein.
Yes, I agree. And I think that the news that coming out of COP28, that it being a war on beef, should definitely be an apt metaphor. Okay, next, I'd like to segue into our very own Michael Fidler, who is and usually does a wonderful job. In fact, I've never seen him do a bad job showcasing to us what it's like to be on the ground at COP28. So some of those photos, some of the people that are out there. Michael, what do you got for us today?
Oh, good evening, Ross. I'm greeting you from the media center. I decided to go to the media center. Hopefully you can see behind me the journalists and newspaper people working very hard. The reason I went here is they have a really good internet right here. I'm connected through cable. Hopefully I won't unplug the cable and I'll stay online. And let me share my screen so I can show you some of the images that were taken today. Now, this is the first image of the day. And I got to bed very early last night. It was just 1 a.m. So I was up very early. I managed to go to bed 1 a.m. already. It was not so bad. And as soon as I got up, it was another sunny day. And I knew that I don't need to get to COP that early. I decided to take a bus, maybe only 3 stops from our apartment, and headed to the hotel on the right, the white building on the right, because it's an iconic building of Dubai. It's called Burj Al Arab, and the hotel should resemble a yacht. I walked around. This is a really fancy area. I spent there maybe only 30 minutes, and within the 30 minutes, I took 150 or 180 photos, because whichever way you look, it's just beautiful there. I mean, in my next life, I want to be probably a sheikh from the Emirates and live in this area. It's beautiful. It's simply beautiful, and you can see the money here. Now, when I was just wandering around, I saw some people wearing various badges, but not the badges that we use here at COP. I did not talk to anyone. I just kept taking photographs. Yet another one, yes. I mean, it's pretty there. And then I saw this sign on one of the hotels which says, this is a climate action innovation zone, COP28. And I was wondering, can I go there? Should I not? Because there was this red carpet going directly to the hotel. And I thought, well, let's give it a try. I have my COP badge. I'll give it a try. I walked in. It was probably 5-star hotel. I had my, sweatpants, because it's so hot. And I knew I have my better clothes in my backpack, but I was all sweaty. And then I walked on this fancy, thick carpet. But I decided I'll give it a try. I'll go in. And guess what? I just showed them my badge, explained them that I'm something between an observer and a press and something in between. And they issued me the badge saying, no problem, you are welcome. Please come into our innovation zone. This is a map of the innovation zone. It was a pretty small area. It was divided into 3 sections. On the right-hand side is an island of hope. On the left-hand side, there was the various pavilions. And on the top, there was the climate knowledge hub, which was not accessible to me. I got just a visitor badge, and they did not let me in. So I wandered only around the two areas. At first, I went to an island of hope. And immediately, the first presentation that just ended was facilitated by Alok Sharma, that's the guy on the right, which is the president of COP26 from Glasgow. So I knew there were very important people there. I stayed around for a bit and went to another presentation. This was Bermuda, the innovation hub of the North Atlantic, and there was a prime minister of Bermudas and few ministers from there, but it was very formal, and I did not really enjoy this presentation. Decided to go to the other area, which was called the innovation zone, where are the various booths there. And it reminded me the Glasgow setup with all the open space, where are the various booths and pavilions right next to each other, and you can easily walk in between them. So it's not like at COP where the pavilions are in separate individual buildings. It was also very fancy and visually attractive. It reminded me the setups from the previous COP, say from COP 26 in Glasgow. There was only one area for an audience to sit down and watch some presentation, and there were many innovative technological companies, and I would say there were maybe 30 these various technological booths. And I knew only this one company, SAP or SAP. That was the only one company I knew when I walked around. So I felt a little ashamed because there were many, 20 to 30 other companies having their booths. And it was all innovative, some startups, and doing very advanced technologies, which I don't even know. Well, very interesting to take some images there and just see which way is the technology moving ahead. Here is an example of underground constructions with AI already involved in the process. These are just few more images from other booths. There was also a virtual reality. But was very interesting to put the VR headset on, and basically this was a way how to wander around a farm and develop the most efficient system for watering the farm and using the nutrients there. Now there was another. I can't even remember what was this one. It was sort of you had a joystick and there was some VR as well, and you were just moving these boxes in a harbor, trying to find the most efficient way how to load the various trucks. I mean, it was interesting. Some important people showed up there as well. This is I can't remember the name, but it's the CEO of Honeywell. Honeywell, the conglomerate corporation doing business in aerospace, building technologies, and other technologies. And the CEO just stood by his stand, was taking some images there as well. I also went to this one presentation, Bridging Youth Leadership and Sustainable Education. It was led by 3 young Pakistani gentlemen who were discussing the innovative technologies in their work. And there was a lot of terms which related to sustainability education and green education. And they also mentioned many times using technologies like Zoom or Google Meet for connecting with people and educating them through these partly educational platforms. There was, of course, the photo opportunity once the meeting ended. And that was enough in that specific in this specific area in the innovation zone. So I walked out. Just let me turn this thing off. And finally finished my trip to the Burj Al Arab. Actually, I walked from the bus stop where I got off, maybe 300 meters, got to the innovation zone. Then I walked another 200 meters to get this photo. This is the photo I came for. Or there were many people who came for the very, very same photo as well. So I think this is my last photo for this part of the morning. I came for this photo. This is a 7-star hotel, or they say it's 5 stars. But the thing on the top you can see it's a heliport, and I just checked out of curiosity some rooms on booking. This is about $2,000 a night rooms right here. Hopefully next time we get to Dubai, we'll stay here. Then I just took a bus. I was headed back to COP. I took a bus, and it was only 3 stops to Mall of Emirates because I wanted to get on the metro. And Mall of Emirates is a huge building in the middle of Dubai, and it has one very unique structure right there. You can see it on the left-hand side. You would never guess what's that. I know it because I've been there previously, and it's a ski area. You can go ski in the middle of a mall. It's called Ski Dubai, and it's beginning of December, so plus 30 degrees centigrade right now, and you can just go to the mall, and there is a skiing area, and it is really, it's like, I would say, bizarre. It's just strange to see snow and snowing in center of a mall, right in the mall. This image should probably show the strange feeling I had there when there are 3 Russian people in shorts and t-shirts looking at the skiing Arabs. This is the last image from the mall because that was really, really weird. I think some of the people just saw the snow for the first time. And yeah, if you want to go ski, go to Dubai. You can do that right there. And once I walked out, then there were these singing reindeers, and it got so weird I just couldn't take it anymore and left that area finally because it was just too much. And then finally made it to COP. And for the first time I saw there was a protest here. Few of the people were shouting, and it was they were speaking in German, but I understood it, and they said that it was around. And there is about 2,500 fossil fuel lobbyists at COP right now, and they were doing a protest against them. Then I took this next shot, and I counted them. It was exactly 9 protesters, and nobody else was there. So 9 protesters and 2,500 lobbyists. So you can see that there is a difference in the number. And this was the last section of the evening. I went to, you might remember from the previous COPs, there is always a award called Fossil of the Day, where they award in a sort of a fun manner countries that are doing the most to achieve the least. And as usually, the winner is usually Japan, Australia, or US, and today it was US again. Now, and this is the last image of the evening when I was just heading to the media center. I just took it on the way, and that should sum up the photos taken today. And back to
Wonderful as always. Thank you so much, Michael.
Amazing.
I really gotta say, what's with all this climate change stuff if it's snowing in Dubai? It must all be a hoax.
What an image. Mike, what incredible images you showed today. Pictures really do speak more than 1,000 words. Extraordinary. Thank you so much.
Well, it was fun. It was fun taking them.
One really does have to wonder how much energy is utilized in the maintenance of a ski slope inside the middle of one of the most arid nations in the entire world. But I guess that's neither here nor there. I hope at least some of the delegates are enjoying it.
Speaking of expending, fossil fuel energy, Vice President Gore does not really pull the punches. Even here in the UAE, I guess you all have heard some of the discord he's had with Al-Jaber in their position toward fossil fuels. But he also mentioned that they're presenting statistics here in our host country that they are using 20% renewables when the actual fact is it's 3.5%. And he discussed at great length our need to solve our climate crisis by really solving the democracy crisis. And to resolve our democracy crisis, we have got to negotiate some shared knowledge. So he was discussing at length not just artificial intelligence and how it's impacting the misinformation and disinformation disseminated by those who control it. He referred to it really as artificial insanity, which I thought instead of AI being artificial intelligence, it's artificial insanity because of what it is, the havoc that it's wreaking in the world and how it's allowing the fossil fuel industry to make a mockery of what we are trying to achieve here. If we want to achieve a pathway to establishing stable governance and solve this crisis, somehow we are going to have to find a way to agree on what reality is. Shared system of reality. Yeah.
I remember that Al Gore's presentations at these COP events are just absolutely fantastic. I mean, he does an excellent job of bringing together folks who have no inclination towards climate science and folks who have been studying climate science for years. His delivery also is quite incredible. So yes, if there's any more thoughts and topics on what we've gone over today, now is the time. As we wind down towards the end of our segment today, I think we've gone over quite a bit of content between the headlines and the interviews that we've had, Michael's photos and scientific discussions. So if anybody has anything else that they'd like to add here to this discussion today, now is the time.
Well, I'd like to just bring up a few comments that John Kerry did make today regarding the new pledges, the new methane pledge, and how the fossil fuel companies have not been equal in how they've addressed it. And he did try to elevate the reactions and the support of ExxonMobil, which really does seem to be moving across the board to control flaring. This is a part of the new agreement that there will be control of flaring and the release of methane when they extract fossil fuels, which is, of course, 80 times more powerful, and the immediate being able to control that will help us bring down greenhouse gas emissions quickly. Just this excess methane expulsion from flaring. But he also called out companies like Chevron and other fossil fuel companies around the world who have yet to make any effort or who are lying about it. So I do want to give a chance to this industry, for the players who have good intentions, who are going to try to be a part of our energy transition and solve this crisis together, and those who are just after profit.
Wonderfully put. Thank you so much, Dana. Okay, anybody else have something to say? And by the way, I want to point out Rob Capece, a wonderful comment with global warming. Sadly, that could be a snow museum for later generations. Yeah, very true, very true. Okay, I believe that wraps it up today for our Day 6 presentation on COP28, our daily briefing between the Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida and Democrats abroad. As always, feel free to email us with any of your questions. We're so happy to entertain them, post them, and discuss them. And as always, we will be continuing our coverage throughout the remainder of COP28. So please stay tuned as tomorrow we carry on with Day 7. In the meantime, everyone, please take care, and we'll see you on the next one.